everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would do a quick review and demo of a new foundation that I've been using for the past 2 months or so, and I'm really liking it. So I look like a hot mess right now. I'm just really tired. Grad school has started. It's my first semester, so I've been a little overwhelmed just because it's an online program and I'm just getting used to that whole learning style. But yeah, so my skin is not in the best shape. I am very undone right now, but I figured I would still do this foundation review, demo, and then just give you my general thoughts. Dermablend Flawless Creator Multi-Use Pigments, and this is a pretty new foundation, I think. I got this from Influencer, and I already put up my review on Influencer and dermablend.com, but I figured I'd want to do a video of it because I really like it. And this is supposed to be kind of like a pigment foundation, similar to Marc Jacobs, where you can use it as a foundation just on its own, a few drops here and there, and then it should give you pretty good coverage. Or you can mix it in with your lighter BB creams, mix it in with your light foundations, I guess, and sometimes you can mix it in also with a moisturizer or a primer. I like to just use this on its own. Sometimes I will use it to mix it in with a light BB cream, but for the most part I like it as a foundation and I don't find it too heavy. That's one of the best things about this, is that it's very different from the Marc Jacobs one. The Marc Jacobs one is very heavy, very full coverage. I have to really prep my skin because I have dry skin. This one is just a little bit more natural. That's what I like. The finish is going to be a very natural matte, I guess. It's not overly shiny, it's not dewy, but it doesn't really look like my face has been sucked dry of all of its moisture. So I really like that. Now they do say that you can use this with your fingertips, or you can use it with a sponge, with a buffing brush. It does not mention a sponge, although I have used it with the sponge and it works fine. You just have to use a lot more drops. You know, 1 drop for minimum coverage, up to 4 drops for full coverage. I find that for me, and again, I personally like a fuller coverage look. I tend to just go with the 4 drops on half of my face and 4 drops on the other half of my face. If I'm using my fingers, I can go with about 3 drops. My fingers, I find, warm up the product a lot better. It kind of sinks into the pores a lot better, and it just kind of gives me a nice even coverage, and it's a lot quicker. The only thing is that my fingers get a little bit dirty and I don't generally like using my fingers, but for this foundation I really find that it works pretty well. So I'm going to kind of show you the tools that I use. So again, my fingers, and then for my brushes I tend to use the Morphe M439, and it's kind of like a rounded, densely packed brush. You can see there's doesn't really sink in. It looks like that. It's very dirty. And then the other one that I tend to use is my Sigma Flat Kabuki F80, which is a very well loved brush. It's just a very flat top, also dense, but not as dense as this. So because I'm working with pigment drops, I find that the denser the brushes, the more surface area I can cover without losing the pigments into the bristles. So today I'm going to do a half face with my fingers and half face with the Morphe brush, and I am going to use a primer. Now I have used this with Laura Geller's Spackle primer, like the gel kind. I've used this with the YSL Blur primer. I've used this with my Too Faced Hangover primer. So I've used it with a lot of different types of primers that have different kinds of finishes, and it seems to do well on all of them. So my favorite primer is the Too Faced Hangover primer though, because I do have dry skin, so this is kind of like a tried and true, so I'm still going to be using this today. I've just been fighting really bad dry skin this winter. I mean, I normally have normal to dry skin, but it's been pretty bad this winter. But this Too Faced one is really good. I really love this primer. Gives just enough tack, just enough smoothness and hydration to get started. Oh, I don't have my palette. I usually have a palette that I drop this on, but I'll just use my back of my hand. It's fine. Now the color I have is 10N. I think it was like fair with neutral undertones leaning yellow or something like that. Their descriptions were really descriptive, I think. But for the most part, it's like a perfect match. If anything, it might be slightly too light. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's slightly too light, and sometimes I feel like it's the perfect shade. So I really like it. This is a lot more runny than the Marc Jacobs one. You can see. And it actually has a stopper that works very well. I know sometimes these makeup companies will create stoppers that don't really actually drop much. So that's 4 drops. And again, I do 4 drops on one side of my face and 4 drops on the other. But usually with my fingers, I usually have a little bit left over. It's a thin formula, but it doesn't run down. So I really like that. So I'm looking in the viewfinder here. And generally with this one too, I find that I can just double up as my concealer and I'm good. And really, you don't need a lot. Even 4 drops with my fingers is probably way too much. I have a lot left here. That's like half of it. So I really could have done probably like 3 drops or so. And when you're spreading it onto your face, it just feels so lightweight. And I always go over my eyes as well because I don't prime my eyes with a separate eyeshadow primer. I just use my concealer and my foundation. I'm looking in the viewfinder, so I have no idea if this is looking messy. It probably is, so just bear with me. Just focus on the finish and the coverage of the foundation, please. Look, it looks so pale compared to this, but I kind of like that, and honestly my body is pretty dang pale. And I do like to warm up the perimeter of my face with bronzer and all that kind of stuff, so that's okay. And it just sinks in so fast, and what I really like about this one is that it doesn't like cling to your pores. It kind of sinks in and kind of smooths it over. I like to just pat, but it feels already dry. It feels so lightweight, but I like to just pat, kind of mimicking like a beauty blender, and just like have it massage into my skin. So let's go on to the next side. I'm just going to use the rest of this, and I'll pour a little bit more just because the brush does use a bit more. So I added 2 more drops here. I'm just gonna, I have really bad breakouts right now on my chin. Luckily they're not colored, but they just hurt a lot. And then for my brush, I am going to use my little mirror because I can't see. So I just like to go in circular motions, stippling at the same time. And I'm going to zoom you in so you can kind of see exactly what is covered and what isn't. Let's start with the brush side. Obviously my texture is still there, but you can still kind of see like a little bit of scars. You can definitely see that. My new one here, my new friend, I do have some dry skin right here, so that is still there, but this is still really good compared to my other like heavier full coverage foundations. This is still like pretty decent. Forehead is good. I don't really have much on there, but you can still see some of my freckles, my sunspots here. Generally this area is really dark actually, so no matter what I use, unless I'm going heavy on the concealer, this will still peek through, but this is still decent. And then along here I have a little bit also. And so I have a little bit left on my hands that has kind of dried down. It's a bit more tackier now, so I'm gonna just kind of spot conceal. See if I can get that in. I'll show you how it layers up for like under the eyes and stuff. I do really like it. I think it's a pretty good like quick concealer also. I have a little bit left here. I added just a little bit more. And I do have a lot of dark circles right now because I slept really late yesterday. And one thing I like about this foundation is that it doesn't really dry down too dark. It pretty much stays the same as when you first applied it. It just kind of looks a bit more natural and more melded into your skin. Also, it doesn't oxidize when it's mixed with other things. At least it hasn't so far for me. Like when I've used powders or, you know, other things on top of it, it hasn't gotten darker or changed to like a weird undertone. And this is my big trouble spot with pores. And you can see how, you can still see my pores obviously because I haven't used like a pore filling primer, but sometimes when I use foundation, that's a bit too thick or too greasy, it actually like kind of highlights these pinpoints of my pores, but this one doesn't do that. It just kind of sinks in and then just kind of becomes invisible, which is what I really, really like. This is like my ideal amount of coverage. It feels really comfortable. I think that's the main benefit of this foundation. It feels so comfortable, it feels so lightweight, and it feels lightweight throughout the day. So even as I get a little bit oilier, kind of, again, I have dry skin, so but I do still get shiny in my T-zone after about like 4 or 5 hours, especially when I'm working. A lot of times I'll get like, it'll start creasing here for my other foundations. I start getting really shiny, and I do have to kind of blot my face just a little bit with like a blotting sheet around the 4-hour mark. And when I do it at the 4-hour mark, then I find that the rest of the 4 hours after, for like a full 8-hour day, it looks pretty fresh still. This one just looks really, really good. Even when I don't have time to do that and I work a full 8 hours, it's still pretty dang good. I mean, I will need to blot at the end of the day, but that's just because I prefer to look dewy with my highlighters. I don't like my actual oils to kind of shine through, just because I feel like then I feel a little messy. Another thing I like about this is it doesn't really transfer as much, and it just feels so comfortable. It's like literally like drying down right now, and you can see it doesn't look too matte. I mean, it's still on the matte side, but it's definitely not like bone dry matte. Like, and later on, as give it an hour, then it starts to look really natural. So I'm gonna finish up the rest of my face, fix my hair and all that, and then I will be right back. Hi everyone, so I'm back again. It's been about 45 minutes. I had to go do laundry. I ended up doing this smoky green eye because I got a new eyeshadow palette and I got distracted and I got carried away. But let's just go over my final thoughts of this foundation. I want to kind of go over like the claims of it, the benefits, and some of the ingredients. So the benefits that Dermablend says is it's oil-free, lightweight, evens and smooth skin. And I will have to say that yes, it definitely feels lightweight. It doesn't make me as greasy as some of the other foundations I try, but then again, I do have normal to dry skin. So I think if you have oily skin and you have struggled with finding a foundation that gives you decent coverage and doesn't make you super oily later, I would definitely try checking this one out. It definitely evens and smooths my skin. Like I talked about, I didn't use any pore filling primer, and it just still made my pores look really, really nice. It kind of evens everything out. Considering how lightweight it is, it does definitely still seem to smooth over the skin very, very well. Also, it says that it lasts for up to 16 hours of smudge and transfer resistance, and I do agree with that. Even when I do feel a little bit oily, when I was wearing this during the fall here in Southern California, it got really, really hot. I didn't really feel myself transferring. I tend to touch my face a lot, and I didn't really see it on my fingertips. It didn't come off on the blotting sheets. So overall, I really like this product. The only downside I would say is that it is a bit pricey. So if you plan on using this more as a mixer, the occasional like full coverage foundation type wear, then I think it's worth your money because it's going to last you a very long time. But if you're like me and I use this every single day, pretty much every single day by itself, I feel like I could go through this pretty fast. That being said, I think I'm about right here so far, and I've used it for a good 2-3 months now on a very regular, consistent basis. So it's still going to last me a long time, but it is slightly more up there compared to like your Too Faced brand or something like that. So also, this does not contain any SPF, so you don't have to worry about flashback, but it does contain dimethicone. So I know some people are a little bit sensitive to dimethicone. They feel that it breaks them out. So if that's a concern of yours, then I would get a sample of this if you can. I know Ulta does not give samples, but maybe you can try the tester out just on your hands or on your face here and see if you break out or not. For me, I don't have a problem with dimethicone. I actually like dimethicone in my products because I feel like they smooth out my skin a little better, glide over the pores a little bit nicer. So some of my fine lines and wrinkles and things like that, it helps with it not creasing on me. So I really like that. I love the shade. I love the finish. I love everything about it, lasting power, the transfer resistance, all of that good stuff. So 5 out of 5, I really highly recommend this if you can get your hands on it. I think it's a really, really good foundation. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.